Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast. Today, we're jumping into a really baffling story from rural Bavaria. It's the Hinterkaifeck murders from 1922.
It's a deeply unsettling one. 6 people on an isolated farm just vanished.
Vanished, only to be found days later victims of this incredibly brutal attack.
Yeah, and we're going to try and piece together what happened. It's a case that, well, it still puzzles people even now, almost a century later. It's not just looking at old files. It's about trying to understand this enduring mystery.
So picture this, Hinterkaifeck. It's this lone farmstead, kind of tucked away behind a tiny hamlet, woods all around. Sounds peaceful, right?
Exactly. But back in March 1922, that peace was shattered. It became the scene of something horrific.
The whole family living there, Andreas Gruber and his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, and her 2 kids, little Cecilia and Joseph.
Right, and the maid, Maria Baumgartner, all 6 of them.
Murdered with a mattock, a kind of pickaxe that actually belonged to the family.
But the really bizarre part, the thing that makes this case stand out, is what happened after the murder.
Yeah, this is the bit that always gets me.
The killer, or maybe killers, apparently just stayed there for 3 days.
Lived there with the bodies.
Seemingly, yes. They ate the food, they looked after the animals, cows and chickens, I suppose. They even lit fires.
Well, the victims were still in the house and barn.
It adds this layer of, well, almost surreal horror to it all. It suggests something beyond just, a quick, violent act.
Okay, let's step back a bit. Before that awful night, March 31st, 1922, things were already strange at Hinterkaifeck, weren't they?
Oh, definitely. It wasn't like this came out of absolutely nowhere. There was a buildup.
Like the previous maid. She left 6 months earlier.
Yeah, she quit because she was convinced the place was haunted. Said she heard noises, footsteps in the attic, felt uneasy.
Imagine living with that feeling. And then in March 1922, closer to the murders.
Andreas Gruber finds this newspaper, a Munich paper.
Which she didn't buy.
Right. And nobody nearby subscribed to it either, so where did it come from? It's just weird. Another unsettling little piece.
And then just days before, the footprints.
Yes. Tracks in the fresh snow, leading from the forest right up to a machine room door.
And the lock on that door was broken.
Exactly. Plus, the family heard footsteps in the attic again around this time. They searched, found nothing.
But Gruber, despite all this, he didn't call the police. Didn't ask neighbors for help.
Apparently not. Declined offers of help, kept it to himself mostly. It makes you wonder, what was going through his head. Did he suspect someone specific? Or just try to ignore it?
There's also that story about Victoria, the daughter.
Ah, yes, from the school friend of young Cecilia. She said Victoria actually ran away from the farm the night before the murders.
After a big fight.
A violent argument, apparently. They found her later, hiding in the forest. It suggests things were maybe tense inside the family, too, not just outside threats.
Okay, so fast forward to Friday, March 31st, the day it happened.
The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrives. Her sister walked with her to the farm.
And then left, making her sister possibly the last person outside the family to see any of them alive.
And Maria had just started her job. Hours later, everything changed.
So the theory is what? Late that evening.
Yeah. The prevailing theory, based on the autopsies in the scene, is that Victoria, her daughter Cecilia, and then her parents, Andreas and Cecilia.
They were lured out to the barn.
One by one.
Possibly. Through the stable area, maybe they heard a noise with the animals, or maybe they were called out. And in the barn, they were attacked.
With the mattock. Blows to the head.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Then the killer, or killers, went into the farmhouse.
And killed little Joseph in his cot.
And Maria, the new maid, in her bedroom, likely with the same weapon. The whole place just fell silent after that.
And nobody noticed for 4 days.
4 whole days, which seems incredible, but it was a very isolated spot.
Some coffee sellers came by on April 1st.
Right, to take an order. Got no answer, just left. Then a mechanic, Albert Hoffner, came on April 4th to fix an engine. He didn't see anyone either.
No. Heard the animals, saw the dog, but no people. He worked on the engine for hours and left. It's quite eerie thinking about it.
So it was Lorenz Schlittenbauer who finally raised the alarm.
Yes, Schlittenbauer. He was a neighbor and, his connection to the family is complicated, as we'll see. He gathered a couple of other men on the afternoon of April 4th.
And they went over.
They went into the barn first, and that's where they found them. Andreas, Cecilia Sr., Victoria, and young Cecilia stacked up.
Stacked. Oh, that's grim.
Horrific. Then they went into the house and found Maria the maid and little Joseph.
The investigation must have been chaotic from the start.
Completely. The scene was swarming with people almost immediately. Neighbors, onlookers, trampling over everything.
Touching things, moving things.
Apparently so. People even went into the kitchen, ate food. Crime scene preservation back then wasn't what it is now, obviously. It was a major problem.
But they did do autopsies.
Yes, the next day. In the barn. They confirmed the cause of death, massive head trauma, likely from the mattock found nearby.
And that awful detail about young Cecilia.
Yeah. Disturbingly, the pathologist concluded she hadn't died instantly. She seems to have survived for several hours after the attack.
Lying there in the straw.
Tearing out clumps of her own hair.
Yeah.
It's just unimaginable.
And they found money in the house. A fair bit.
Yes, a large sum, which pretty much ruled out robbery as the main reason for the attack. So the motive became even more puzzling.
And reinforced the idea that someone stayed, tending the animals, eating the food, for 3 days.
That detail just hangs over everything. Who would do that and why?
Did the investigators figure out how they were lured to the barn? The layout seemed important.
Well, they realized that noise from the barn probably wouldn't carry clearly to the house.
So the idea that they were all lured out by, say, a restless cow, maybe that doesn't quite hold up.
It makes it less likely, perhaps. Suggests maybe a more deliberate, targeted approach. Maybe they were called out individually by someone they knew or surprised somehow.
And there were other witness accounts that never quite got resolved, right?
Yeah, a few odd things, yeah. Like a local craftsman, Michael Pluckel, who passed by the farm the night after the murders.
What did he see?
He said the oven had been fired up recently, and he saw someone near it with a lantern who deliberately shone it in his face, blinding him before hurrying off. He also mentioned a really foul smell from the smoke.
Was that followed up?
Not properly, it seems. Then there was another report from a farmer and a butcher seeing two strangers near the woods early on April 1st.
The day after the murders.
Right. These figures apparently turned away quickly when they realized they'd been spotted, hiding their faces. Could they have been involved? Or just unrelated? We don't know.
This case is just, it's like a maze. So many potential paths, so many suspects over the years.
A really long list. And none of them ever definitively proven guilty. Or innocent, for that matter.
Let's start with Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband. He was supposed to have died in World War I.
Supposedly. But his body was never actually found. Which, naturally, led to rumors. Could he have survived? Come back.
And there was motive there. Potentially, given the situation with Victoria and her father.
Well, there was the documented incestuous relationship between Victoria and her father, Andreas. They'd both served jail time for it. And Victoria's son, Joseph, born while Carl Gabriel was away. Well, gossip said Andreas was the father.
So if Carl did come back,
yeah,
that's a powerful mix of jealousy, rage.
Exactly. And then there were those stories after World War II. German POWs released from Russia claimed they knew a Soviet officer who boasted about being the Hinterkaifeck killer.
And some thought this officer could have been Carl Gabriel.
It was a theory that maybe he didn't tie in France, ended up in Russia, and somehow made his way back seeking revenge. But again, just speculation. No hard proof.
Okay, then there's Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor.
The one who initiated the discovery. He was widely believed to have had an affair with Victoria. Some even thought he was Joseph's father.
And his behavior afterwards was suspicious.
Very. Finding the bodies was one thing. But he apparently had a house key, went in alone before anyone else, claiming to look for his son, Joseph.
Despite the doors being locked.
Yes. And he reportedly moved the bodies in the barn before the police properly examined the scene.
That doesn't look good.
Not at all. He was questioned extensively. Years later, like in 1925, he allegedly made comments suggesting inside knowledge, like knowing the killer tried to bury the bodies in the barn but couldn't because the ground was frozen.
Was that public knowledge?
Apparently not. He always denied involvement, even won slander cases about it, but suspicion followed him until he died in the 1940s.
What about the Gump brothers, Adolf and Anton?
Adolf had ties to the Freikorps, these right-wing paramilitary groups active after WWI, known for violence. So he was on the radar early on.
And their sister accused him.
Much later, yeah. In 1951, on her deathbed, she claimed her brothers did it. Anton was still alive and investigated, but
not enough evidence.
Nothing concrete. The case was dropped. Adolf had already died years before.
Then there were Carl S. and Andreas S., another accusation from a relative.
Right. A woman claimed her mother told her sons were the killers. One supposedly lost his penknife there.
And they found a penknife.
They did, years later when the farm was demolished. but it couldn't be linked definitively. The former maid even thought she'd seen it before the murders, so another dead end, really.
Peter Weber, another name that came up.
A former acquaintance. Someone claimed Weber talked about robbing the farm, knew about the family situation, even mentioned killing the father, but again, just talk. No proof he acted on it.
The former maid, Christens Reiger, she pointed fingers too, didn't she?
She did. She suspected the Bichler brothers, Anton and Karl, and a man named Georg Siegel.
Why them?
She said Anton Bichler knew the farm well, had openly wished the Grubers dead, and interestingly, the farm dog, usually aggressive, apparently never barked at him.
And Siegel.
Georg Siegel had worked there, knew about rumors of hidden money. Crucially, he admitted he'd carved the handle for the mattock, the murder weapon, and knew exactly where it was kept in the machine shed.
That's quite specific knowledge.
It is.
Yeah.
Very specific. Then there were the Tholer brothers, also suspected based on Reiger's testimony.
They were burglars.
Had a reputation for it, yeah. One brother was allegedly seen near the maid's window before the murders, asking about the family, their money, who slept where. Reiger saw him with someone else watching the machine house.
So many threads. And then there's that more recent theory connecting it to an American serial killer.
Yeah, that's from author Bill James. He suggested a link to a German immigrant in the U.S., Paul Mueller, suspected of similar family annihilations there around the turn of the century.
Similar how?
Isolated farms, blunt force weapon, often an axe or similar tool, bodies sometimes stacked, robbery, not the motive. Mueller vanished from the U.S. around 1912.
So James theorizes he came back to Germany, and Hinterkaifeck was one of his.
That's the idea. It's speculative, of course, linking crimes across decades and continents, but the parallels he points out are, well, they're intriguing.
It just shows, doesn't it, the sheer number of suspects, the lack of clear evidence. It's overwhelming.
Absolutely. And you have to remember the forensics of the 1920s were minimal compared to today. Plus, that badly contaminated crime scene from day one.
It leaves us with this chilling, unsolved puzzle. If you're finding this dive into the Hinterkaifeck mystery as gripping as we are, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more deep dives into fascinating stories coming up right here on Tell Me More Stories Told This podcast, and you really won't want to miss them.
You know, the Hinterkaifeck case just stays with you. It's such a stark reminder that terrible things can happen anywhere, even in these quiet, isolated places.
And the core questions remain completely unanswered. Who did it? And the why is maybe even more haunting.
Was it someone they knew? A neighbor like Schlittenbauer nursing a grudge, or maybe driven by that paternity question?
Or Carl Gabriel, the supposedly dead husband returning? Or just a stranger, someone who drifted in and out?
Exactly. A phantom who just committed this horror and disappeared back into the woods.
The story has definitely captured the imagination, hasn't it? Books, documentaries, even that best-selling novel loosely based on it.
It taps into that fascination we have with the unknown, I think. With mysteries that just refuse to be solved, it leaves you feeling unsettled.
And that detail about the killer staying for 3 days.
That, for me, is the most chilling aspect, the sheer coldness of it. Living there, eating, tending animals with the victims nearby.
It suggests a mindset that's hard to even comprehend. It wasn't just rage, was it? There was something else going on there.
Something deeply disturbing. What kind of person does that? It just underlines how truly unique and twisted this whole crime was.
And thinking back to those strange events beforehand, the noises, the footprints, that newspaper.
The growing unease, it's like this shadow falling over the farm. You can almost feel the dread building.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What do you make of all that? Were there clues hidden in plain sight that everyone missed? Could understanding those earlier events unlock the whole thing?
It invites you to keep thinking, keep questioning, to be that armchair detective trying to fit the pieces together even after all this time. The Hinterkaifeck mystery endures.